Hello everybody, just a quick video on how to download multiple kubeconfig files, merge them all together into one kubeconfig file, and then use that config file to access multiple clusters by changing context. So here we are at civo.com. Let's go ahead and log in. And we'll use the alex@atxlinux.com email address. And the password is and we'll go and click on Kubernetes on the left-hand side here. And here are all my clusters. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll just click on the first one here. And where it says kubeconfig, I'll click to download. And then download kubeconfig. And I'll save this file to my downloads folder. And I'll click on Kubernetes to go back to view all of my clusters at once. Then I'll scroll down and I'll click on the next one, hkates. And I'll click to download that one. And save it in my downloads again. Click on Kubernetes on the left-hand menu here. And then go down to my third cluster, which is called Kates. Click to download, and save it in the same place. And go back. And my fourth cluster, do the same thing. And my last one, which is wkates. Okay, now that I have downloaded all those kubeconfig files, I'll go over to my terminal and I'll change directory into my downloads folder. And I'll just list the contents of my downloads folder here and I'll just grep for kubeconfigs. That's the name they all had in common. So here are all my kubeconfigs. So now what I'll do is just change my kubeconfig environment variable and export that to my shell. So I'll do export kubeconfig equals, and then I'll add each file separated by a colon. So starting with the first one, I'll do civo bkates kubeconfig colon, and then civo hkates kubeconfig colon, no spaces, civo kates kubeconfig colon civo npe caraway kubeconfig 1. And so now when I do a kubectl config get context, I'll see those are all of my clusters now that I've added them to my kubeconfig variable. So let's clear the screen. And right now, if we change directory back to our home, if we do the same get context command, we won't see that because kubectl by default is looking for your kubeconfig in the .kube directory in here. So if I ls.kube, I'll see there's the config. So that's where kubectl by default is looking for that config. So I don't want to have to always be in the downloads folder to be able to access my cluster. So what I can do is I can do kubectl config view, and then I can do flatten, and then I'll put that to a file named config in my .kube directory, and I'll just overwrite that and I have to be in the downloads folder to do that, of course, because it's viewing that configuration from where I set my context. And so now that we have a new config file, so if I do a vim on that, I'll see here's my new config file and it has all of my clusters and all of my contexts all in one file, so it's good. Now what we can do is set our kubeconfig environment variable back to the config file in the .cube directory. So again, kubeconfig or export kubeconfig equals and then .cube config. Makes sense? So now wherever I'm at in my whatever directory, I can do kubectl get nodes if I have the right context selected, or I can do get context again, or config context rather, get contexts. And then I could switch my context, so I could do kubectl config use context, and then I can do hkates, for example, and then I can do kubectl get nodes on that. And that's a quick way to switch back and forth between my contexts and not have to worry about being in the downloads directory, first of all, and then also, being able to have a single kubeconfig file. So that's it.